Hello, this is Jill from Paper Daisy Crafting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demo here in the UK. This is my project for today. I'm going to give you a tutorial on how I made this card. This was made for a blog hop for our Project Share group, which was, the theme was vintage. Now, I have to say that any of you that know me will know that this is right out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a vintage kind of girl in any way, shape or form. I don't really like all this messy around the edges. Don't really like browns, sludgy, anything that looks old. I like clean, simple, lots of white space, less is more. So this was a real challenge for me, this card, but I did manage to make it and I was quite pleased with it. But I thought what I'd do for the video, rather than remaking it as a vintage card, I'll make it in the colours that I would like this card to be. So it'll be exactly the same card, it's just in bright colours rather than vintage colours. Just in case you need to know, the colours I used here were Pebbled Path, which is one of our new in colours, and Pecan Pie, which is one of our new neutrals. And then this was Pecan Pie card. This was very vanilla that I blended some ink on with our blending brushes. And then this was Crumb Cake, which I blended some Pecan Pie over as well. And then the label is from Cheerful Daisies. The label's die is in this die set and the greeting is in the stamp set, and it fits perfectly, so I thought I'd use that one again. So anyway, let's see what our card looks like when we use bright. So I'm going for Melon Mambo today with a bit of bubble bath. So grab my trimmer, make my card blank. So 15 by 21, need that arm out. There we go. Score it at 10.5 centimetres. Sorry guys, this is all in centimetres. I think there are lots of conversions to imperial online, but you could just look up a conversion chart and see the nearest measurements. I just tend to work in metric all the time. So there we go. So that's our card blank. These scraps will go back in my scrap box. Right, now we need a panel. So we're going to take bubble bath, this is, and we're going to cut it 1/2 centimetre smaller than the card blank, so it's going to be 14.5, which is just about where it was. Oh, got an odd little bit there. I might cut it just a little bit smaller, just so I can trim that little bit off. It's just too near the edge to cut cleanly. There we go. And 10. And I'm just going to, again, I'm going to cut it a little bit smaller just because I cut the other one a little bit smaller. There we go. Oh, excuse me. Right, so that should layer with a nice border around it onto our card blank like so. Yes, nice. Okay, I'm just going to burnish the edges so that I get rid of the lip that the trimmer gives it. And then I'm going to cut my piece of white down to 1 centimetre smaller than that last bit. So we're going to have a nice wide border this time. So we've got a thin border there, which is 2.5 millimetres, so 1/2 centimetre altogether. And now we've got a 1/2 centimetre border, which means I need to cut this down 1 centimetre smaller than that last panel. So the last panel was 14.5, so this one is going to be 13.5. And sideways it was 10, so this is going to be 9. And I'm hoping that my maths is correct. So let's give that a try. So we've got bubble bath. And yes, lovely, look at that. Great, I'm already liking this card. Sorry, Jez. Just can't get on board with all the vintagey stuff. I know Jez is so talented, does some brilliant vintage stuff, but it just isn't just doesn't float my boat. We can't all be the same, so it's a good job that there's different demos, different designers in the team. Right, there we go. Right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some blending around the bubble bath, because I did some blending onto the Very Vanilla here. So I'm going to do a bit of blending. I'll need to be careful because Melon Mambo is a really strong pink. So I'm going to have to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to get a piece of spare scrap paper so that I can take most of the ink off before I start touching my cardstock. So you see that's quite bright and vicious. Need to get that off before I start coming onto my card. There we go. So it's a very, very delicate effect, this. So get most of that off and then come onto your cardstock. Remember, we're only going to see a little bit of this, so you don't need to worry about doing further in. There we go. Just take the ink off. Don't want that bright, dark ink on here. It's just a very subtle effect. And there we go. So that is going to layer onto there. So I could just stick that on now, as we're done with that. I'm just doing this because I'm trying to replicate what I did for the vintage one. So remember, this was Very Vanilla and I did the blending in Pecan Pie. So if you wanted to recreate the Very Vanilla, the vintage one, you can. But I'm just showing you exactly the same techniques, but in these brighter colours that are much more me. So this layers on here. Like so. And again, I'm just going to use my bone folder, press that down, make sure that's really nicely stuck. Now, here is my piece of white. So what I'm going to do first of all is do all the stamping. So I've got, these are from Bottled Happiness. So you get 2 stamp flower and leaf set, and you get 2 stamps with the bottles. So I'm going to stamp my bottle. I'm going to stamp it off actually. So I'm going to take Smoky Slate and do it in grey, the bottle. So I'm going to take, first of all, I'm going to measure to the middle of my card so that I can get my bottle centered nicely. There we go. So let's stamp in the Smoky Slate on my finger. Stamp off and then stamp over here. So I'm hoping this will be quite nice and pale. It would have been nice and pale if I hadn't dropped the stamp on it. Luckily, pieces of cardstock have 2 sides, so we'll try again, and I'll try not to drop it this time. What a klutz, eh? Right, let's try that again. Stamp it there. Stamp off. And so yeah, do remember your cardstock has 2 sides, so you've got one for making a mistake. There, that's good. Perfect. Right, let's not try to do the same with this one. Now, this is an outline. You don't necessarily need to use it. I think that bottle looks fine, but you can use it. Now, the thing about this stamp is that if you take it off, it's very easy to distort it as you stick it on the stamps, on the block. So my advice is put it on a flat surface, let it find its own place, and then put your block on top of it. And then you'll find it will be all lined up nicely. So we're going to do this. I'm not stamping this bit off. So we've got a darker thing, and then we just got to work out where this is going. And I think it's going there. Ah, look at that. Perfect. Perfecto. Right, okay. So now then, I'm going to come in with the flowers. flowers are going to sit there, and I'm going to stamp them in Melon Mambo. You can see how stained my stamp is. That always happens with Melon Mambo. The red ink really stains. So this is my go-to pink now that we've lost polished pink. I preferred polished pink by a mile, but of course it's retired, so haven't got rid of my polished pink though, but I don't use it because I want you to be able to buy whatever I'm showing. So there we go. There's the flowers. Now the greenery, the foliage lines up with that exactly. And the way to line it up is to line up all these little flower middles, and then it should fit. I'm using Parakeet Party. So, excuse me if my head gets in the way. So I'm going to look at these little flower centres there, and then line up all the flower centres, and then the rest of it should follow. Ta-da! There we go. What are you thinking so far? Bit of an odd, it's a bit bright, that green. Maybe a more subtle green would have been better. Right, now just because I did it on the vintage one, I am going to do a little bit more sponging or blending with our blending brushes. So I need my sheet again. Take off the most of that ink, and then just very subtly, wasn't quite as subtle as this on the other one, but just because I want this to be much more clean and simple. There we go. There. So you can see I'm using a circular motion, taking most of the ink off, and then a nice circular motion which gives you a really nice edging on your card. And just start off with the thing is to start off with a little. You can always add more, you can't take it off. So start with a little and then add if you need to. And there we go, that's as much as I'm going to do. So where's my card blank here? Let's close this before I get that everywhere. So that's going to layer on there like so. Nice. There we go. Layer that on here, and then it's just the greeting that we need to do. It's still a little bit messy for me, to be honest. I don't really like these blended edges, but I'm going with it. Right, okay, so we need to mount this stamp on a block. Let me find a block that this will fit on. So our stamp set says, wishing you the brightest birthday. I think it's more appropriate for this card than it was for my vintage one, actually. It wasn't really the most appropriate sentiment for that one, but I did that card in a real hurry because I left it till the last minute to design it because I wasn't inspired. Okay, and then I need a piece of Whisper White, which I will grab. Keep all my Whisper White in here, so I've always got a little bit of card to use. I keep calling it Whisper White. It's not Whisper White. Basic White. Whisper White was the actually I might do this. Should I do this in green? No, we'll stick with the Melon Mambo. Whisper White was white we had when I first joined Stampin' Up. Very, very similar to our Basic White, but the factory went out of business, so they had to find an alternative and they called it Basic White, which does make more sense, to be honest. We've got Basic Black, we've got Basic Grey, so Basic White, you know, fits the bill really. Right, okay, and then we're just going to put this through the die cutter with this die. Like so. Just get rid of all of this. Just put this, my grid paper, up while I bring the die cutter in, otherwise it slides all over the place. It's amazing how we can all have different styles, really. Jez and I have really migrated away from each other. She's gone more and more vintage and messy, and I've gone more and more clean and simple and white spaces. We started off reasonably similar, but we've really diverged. Right, okay, so there's my greeting. Oh, it's not very well centered, but hey ho, I'm going with it. And that's going to go on here. I might go in the middle, actually. I might just do a little bit of blending on there, just so that it blends in with the rest of the card. I'm not going to put any more ink on my brush. I'm just going to go over it with the brush as it is, just to bring it in line with the rest of the card. So that can go there or there. Maybe we'll do it right in the middle. Do it right in the middle this time, I think. Just get some dimensionals. Really want some large ones. Where are my large ones gone? Here we go. Got an awful lot of small ones there, but I just did want some large ones for this. I used to use the small ones all the time, and recently I've gone back to using the large ones. Just a phase. I'll probably come out the other side and use the small ones again. There we go. And let's pop that in the middle of our bottle. There. What do you think? Which one do you prefer? Not my favourite card ever, I have to say, but I like it a lot better than the vintage one. Actually, this one's a lot smaller by the looks of it. I must have cut that much smaller. Look, it's got about a centimetre smaller. Hey ho, there are my two cards, my two bottled happiness cards, to show you how different you can do it when you have different colours. Thank you so much for watching. The bottled happiness and the cheerful daisy stamp sets are still available, and the die sets, go down below, they're all in my shop. You can have a look. There'll be links below the video as well that you can click straight through. Thanks for joining me. If you do feel like ordering, remember I have a code that'll be over on my blog, and if you add that to the host code box, you get a free product gift next month. And while you're there, do have a look at my buy one get one free sale on my blog. There's lots of new stuff going on there all the time. I'm really trying hard to get all my stuff listed, so do have a look and see if there's anything you fancy. Meanwhile, that's it from me. Thanks very much, and I'll see you soon.